some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who was the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words.
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say, no, I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is?
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really don't
have said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty. I know this lady right over there, Harris, is a fantastic person who just interviewed me at length. And we had a great interview, I think, and I heard you got very good ratings on that.
Well, you told me it was the longest one of your life, so we had a good discussion. Look, I want to talk about why you're here today. I mean, it is not lost on us.
You say what?
Did he like waiting for her that she was a diversity hire?
No, he just said that that she gave him a good interview. But here's what I wanted to get into real quick. Why are motherfuckers offended at a program they're defending? Like, for the life of me, I'm not understanding this. You're fighting tooth and nail to keep DEI programs in place.
I mean,
when someone points to an individual and says that they are a product of said policy, it's offensive.
Because this day and age, it has the connotation of unearned, whether correct or not.
So why are you fighting for the program then still?
Because some people need them unearned handouts.
Hey, look, how about instead of calling
it all the time?
How about instead of letting the narrative that this individual, this program gives people something that is unearned, explain it to individuals to say that this is not a function of people not being qualified or not earning a position, but it is to actually ensure that we have a diverse grouping of people that are qualified to do a thing. They never fight for the thing that they're talking about. You run to DEI, and then soon as someone labels you a DEI person, you say, oh, no, hell no, fuck that, I'm not DEI. Yes, you're DEI. Kamala Harris is the epitome of a DEI hire. The man said, I am going to get a Black woman. He specifically said, I am going to hire someone in the vein of diversity and inclusion. I'm going to include a diverse person. That's what it is. You can't get mad at it when you've been fighting for it all this time.
After history, some things pick up a negative connotation, like food stamps. Like there are programs that just have a bad connotation to them after years of abuse. Section 8, low income. So there are instances where these programs just are off-putting to the general public. That's it. That's all. It's just that simple.
Are not, because they're off-putting because people aren't explaining what they are. Well, the people who aren't in favor of these programs are
arguing
for one reason or another in charge of describing them. And
But
they
that's
are
what I'm
the ones that are writing the definitions for these things. And of course, it's going to have a negative connotation if the person defining it doesn't like it.
most of
Why
these
are you
times,
letting the people who don't like it, don't support it, don't fight for it, define it?
most of these times they are arguing extremes, and that's the problem. It don't be inherent disdain for the shit. It's the extremes, and people need to rein it in and just say, "I'm speaking in general." In general, it is a good 70%. It is good. 30%, yes. You may see some idiosyncratic behavior,
Look,
but
in this instance, I think it benefits you to point to the extremes. I think it'll benefit you if you really believe that Kamala is that motherfucker. It would benefit you to be able to point to her and say that she is here because of DEI policy. Now, let me tell you about her. She is extremely qualified. No, let me finish. She's extremely qualified, perhaps even overqualified. If you believe that she is, then say that shit about her. But when you say that she's not a DEI hire or no, she's overqualified and things like that, you're separating DEI from the qualified individual who is in fact a DEI hire, and therefore delegitimizing people who are hired because of DEI policy. You can legitimize DEI hires in one foul swoop by saying that this person right here is a DEI hire and they are the most qualified individual to be the president of the United States. And this is what happens when you have diversity, equity, inclusion at the forefront of your thought-making process. Now you have a black woman who is the most qualified person to be president, actually in line to be president, as opposed to somewhere eight spaces down the road because she was never boosted up to be vice president because of DEI. You can make the case if you want to make the case.
But in practice, we seen that nobody follows Calvin to McDonald's. You can make the case.
Yeah, nobody does because we're stupid. I've been trying to make that case for a while now, and that's the case I'm trying to make.
In retrospect, after 30 years of testing these and arguing extremes, so now the point is conflated. People have been used to arguing extremes, and extremes have now become indicative of the whole.
Well, I'm just saying that if we're trying to change the connotation of a thing, we can use this extreme of a person that is extremely qualified that happens to be in this position of DEI, as opposed to just pointing to the extremes of instances where an individual is underqualified and they are there because of a DEI hire, which I don't know we can point to a lot of instances of that, because from my experience, if it's a black person there in a high powered, high visibility position that actually has something to do, then that motherfucker is there because they are qualified than a motherfucker to do the job. Now, if it's a position in which there is no actual risk involved in the decision makings of that person, then they might pull whoever the fuck they get that looks good in the suit and got a nice smile to be the figurehead of this particular thing, this movement. Now, the issue that we have is a lot of those DEI positions were just that. Meaningless, worthless, toothless positions that they put vapid, underqualified, unimpressive people in charge of, and then pointed to them as being unimpressive. And then pointed to them as being ineffective, when in fact they were unimpressive people to begin with that were put in jobs that had very little ability to be effective in them. Crazy. Now, I don't know if anybody recognizes this chick, but I believe she's old girl from Fox. I think she does like Fox in the morning or some shit like that. I can't remember, but she looked like that same sister. Do y'all know?
Nah. But one thing that I did find out, I was listening to Bomani Jones podcast, and apparently, like the Wednesday of the um Black Journalist Conference is like the check-in day. It's like the first day when motherfuckers is barely showing up, and he said that most people don't even get there until Wednesday evening. So it was probably a very strategic reason why he went on Wednesday in the morning.
Hey, yo, look, man, your time is your time. I'm not finna sit here and act like him going into this obviously adversarial situation is not a moment of kudos. If you could produce, I'm finna go to that other part in the clip where they start to talk about what was the other thing they talked about? I think it was it the abortion part? No, it was the Sonia Massey part of the tape. I think it's at 17 minutes somewhere around there. If you can find that real quick, I'm finna go to that part. But the point I was gonna make, Harris Faulkner is her name, and I believe she's on Fox News. Yep. All right. So the point I was making was that he went into this obviously adversarial situation with shit. I think it's 17 minutes. A shit ton of black journalists, right? They're not gonna in from the questions that they gave him, it doesn't seem like he hit them with a you can't ask me about this, or this. They asked him about it. He might not have answered it to anybody's satisfaction if he ain't want to. But a lot of that shit that they did ask him, he actually did answer. Might not have been an answer that you wanted. Might not have been the answer that you thought made the most sense, but that was his rationale behind it. They asked him one about what would you do different, or about what would be the thing that the current administration is fucking up. And he was like, inflation. We gotta get inflation under control. We get inflation under control, we can solve a lot of these fucking problems around here. That's an answer. What are you gonna do to get inflation under control? He said, energy. I'm gonna get energy back right, and that's gonna solve inflation. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but that's his point.
What bothered me about that whole back and forth is he was treating inflation as if it was a sole entity.
Uh-huh.
That was odd to me.
I mean, if you want to talk about it, it's like we're gonna get to a long conversation about it. But real quick, what was the bother about you? What was the bother about that to you?
What, that he talked about it like it's a sole entity?
Sole entity of what?
It conflates the rationale of what inflation actually is.
Well, say the whole sentence.
What? That was the whole sentence.
It was the sole entity of what? Like the sole entity of the reason that.
No, he acted as if it was a fucking third party sole proprietorship, like it was a fucking company going under. He talked about it as if it was an entity.
Oh, I thought he talked about it as it was a concept. Or yeah, like a concept, inflation. I don't know. I wasn't dissatisfied with his inflation talk, other than the fact that he didn't come up with a plan to really solve it, other than gas is too high. But in the Q&A, he's going to give you an answer, and then he's just gonna go back to whatever talking point that he could hit, or whatever thing that he got some heat from the crowd with. So if he during this rambling stumbles upon saying something that the crowd resonates with, he just jumped back to that, and he's gonna zero in on that and just talk around that particular thing until you ask him something else or change the subject. And I get it as a tactic when you don't have shit to say about a thing. I understand it completely. It's a motherfucking masterful way to communicate to people when you not very intelligent, but when to assume to present to be very fucking intelligent.